companies are investing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in building AI tools for their business. I think the biggest misconception around AI and IT today is this expectation that AI is here to replace human capability. Things like prompt injection attacks, manipulation, getting it to give them access to information that sits in your CRM system. You want AI to surface information, but you don't necessarily want AI making high-risk decisions for your business. I think the answer to that varies widely, depending on what technology, what industry, what customers we're talking about. I think some are better prepared than others. And I do think that the generation that are in their workforces, so the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas that are just starting to enter the workforce, a lot of the millennials who have grown up in and around technology, tend to be much more ready for this type of technology because they use it in their day-to-day lives. I think other technologies, other industries that are focused on very traditional things like manufacturing potentially, or banking and financial services, maybe a little slower to adopt just because they tend to be a little more risk averse in adopting newer technology. But I think overall, we've been talking about AI, machine learning and things in the enterprise and in businesses for a long time now. And I think the larger the company is, the more entrenched they are in legacy technologies, the more difficult or the more preparation they're going to need to do to prepare to take full advantage of what AI can do for them. Smaller companies who might be a little more nimble may actually be able to pivot and move around this a little quicker. So I think it really depends on where those companies are, how open they are to trying new things, to experimenting on use cases that have lower risk for their business and allow them to learn and grow around the technology as they need it. They may be more ready and they may be able to move faster than some of the larger ones. I think from an IT operations perspective, most companies are facing challenges around a couple things, right? There's this expectation that IT has become commoditized, especially IT operations. And every year, CIOs, IT leaders are being asked to provide more and more capability with less investment. And that's a challenge. And I think, where AI is playing into this a lot today is that there's these mandates coming down from boards of directors and from leaders of companies who are seeing peers talking about AI and want to move quickly. So you're seeing an influx of investment around AI specifically, where other parts of your technology stack may have been underinvested in over the last 5 to 10 years, and you're suddenly expected to spin up all these AI capabilities, whether you're using things like OpenAI or Claude, or being asked to build your own LLMs within your company, based off a technology stack that was good technology 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but wasn't built for the type of transportation that is required for how technology is changing in the AI world. This isn't the same type of client server compute that a lot of us grew up with. This is a transactional real-time conversation with an endpoint going back and talking to a large language model that's sitting in a data center somewhere with the expectation of real-time interaction and processing. So most technology infrastructures are not built to sustain this type of model unless you've done that type of investment over the last 3 or 4 years to build your technology and your infrastructure out in a way that allows you to do that. I think the bigger challenge that a lot of these companies are going to face around the operational side of IT in the AI world is, how do I observe, secure, and manage the transactions and interactions that AI is having? I think there's a lot of different places where AI can help IT operations today. I think very specifically when you're looking at large amounts of data being created by machines and technology in your environment, the ability to quickly spot patterns, guide your agents, your operations agents towards what's actually happening, separating signal from noise amongst all that data, that is a great use case for AI today. You think about, there's a a stat that I heard recently that 90+% of all the data created on the internet today, or just in the world today, was created in the last 2 to 3 years. And that's only going to increase exponentially in an AI world where AI is creating at a pace far faster than humans could by themselves unassisted. So sorting through that data, especially as it's coming from your infrastructure and your operational technology, is going to be even more increasingly difficult. That's where things like AI agents to help you write queries against operational data, to help guide an agent towards the next best action around what they should be doing with the data that they're looking at. So helping operators, whether they're in your network operations center, your security operations center, or elsewhere, understand what they're seeing in the data. That's all things that they can do today with various tools, including Splunk. Doing things like enabling your NOC agents to do queries and searches and assist them in next best actions, your security operations center, and helping them see different attacks and frameworks that are being used to attack your infrastructure. This is all capabilities that are available today through a variety of tools, including Splunk. I think the biggest misconception around AI and IT today is this expectation that AI is here to replace human capability. AI at its core is an assistive technology, and a lot of businesses are going to really have to evaluate their risk appetite around how they want to use AI. You want AI to surface information and help guide people towards making the right decisions, but you don't necessarily want AI making high-risk decisions for your business. So you need to understand what risk tolerances you have around decision-making and ensure that, sure, high volume, low value, low risk decisions can be made all day by AI. But anything that has a potential to introduce risk to your business or risk to your customers or risk to your reputation should be surfaced to a human being. And sure, you can use the AI to advise them as to what the likely best course of action is based off historical decision making. But you want human beings using AI to help them make better decisions, not allow AI to make decisions without humans. Yeah, it's very interesting to look at how agentic and the term agentic was introduced to the industry. It started as a buzzword, but I think ultimately where the interpretation of it has gone is these are non-human workers in your environment. And in many cases, they're going to have their own credentials, their own logins, their own ability to take actions on behalf of your business, interact with your customers, provide outcomes for your customers. Agentic isn't just a chat agent providing a conversation into an existing workflow or form. Agentic is something that is set up with specific business rules to interact with your employees, to interact with your leadership, to interact with your customers, and take informed decisions within those business rules on behalf of you as a business. So you need to think of them as an extension of your human workforce in many ways, either assisting your human workers, or in some cases, doing some work that frees up your human workers to do more strategic things for your business. I think a lot of the barriers that companies are going to experience, especially in the early days of adopting agentic, are going to come down to legacy mindsets, legacy technology, and legacy security and other policies that they have in their environment. And they're going to need to really evaluate how they build things, including their infrastructure, to support their agenda with agentic, how they want to roll those things out. I think culturally, cultural adoption is going to be one of the biggest hurdles. And I've seen a lot of AI projects and agentic projects either go one of two ways. They're either wildly successful with rapid adoption within the culture, or they're wholesale rejected by the culture and the adoption lags because the workforce and your employees and your customers were not fully prepared for how differently the work was going to be done when the agents were introduced to the business process. So understanding how that business process is going to change and preparing for that change across all of your stakeholders is essential. I think ultimately a lot of work in operations is having people sift through large quantities of data to interpret that data and make decisions around that data. And I think this is a great use case for AI to come in, help make sense, to help understand the patterns that exist within that data and surface options and decisions that the business or those operators or those individuals in your infrastructure team need to make regarding things and choices that they have to do to move your business forward, to make decisions around the day-to-day, whether it's from an operational point of view, looking at the health of your IT services, looking at the security of your IT services through the lens of, are we being attacked? Or is this just a common occurrence? I think especially understanding how quickly the landscape has changed in terms of security and how fast something that used to be a zero-day exploit would take, say, weeks or months to be seen actually being exploited in infrastructure. Nowadays, that's minutes, if not seconds, after these exploits are discovered, that someone's trying to use them against your business. So I think the speed at which your infrastructure and your operational teams can react to changes in vulnerabilities is something that AI absolutely can be used to assist your business. Yeah, when we think about what governance looks like for AI, especially agentic, I think this is something that has been largely overlooked by a lot of leaders today, especially those who are in a rush to get agentic and get AI products to market. Companies are investing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in building AI tools for their business. And very few of them are looking at things like, how do I observe this LLM or this agent in a way that I know it's doing what I designed it to do, and it's staying within the parameters that I expect it to stay. They're also not looking at very closely at security for these agents especially. How do you know that someone's not leveraging your agent to do nefarious things within your organization? How do you know that your agents or your customers aren't trying to game the system with your agents and get it to do things that you didn't expect it to do? Things like prompt injection attacks, things like manipulation, things like getting it to give them access to information that sits in your CRM system. These are all real examples of things that are happening today with LLMs, agents, and AI. So I think a lot of companies really need to think about, how do I observe my LLMs and agents so that they're doing the things I need them to do? And how do I make sure I'm protecting my business against potential risk through this new doorway, essentially, into my business? If I were preparing an IT organization for what the next 3 to 5 years looks like in AI and agentic, I would really have my team focused on a few different things. One, understanding conceptually and basically how a large language model works, how AI uses patterns and recognition of what it expects human beings to do to make decisions and assimilate information into a response or into a set of actions. I would make sure that everyone on my team understood what prompt engineering is and how to write good prompts. It's very interesting to me. I think we make assumptions as human beings that the way AI is working or having a conversation should look a lot like how a human has a conversation. And in many ways, the very broad LLMs like OpenAI and Claude are geared towards conversational interaction. But if you are looking for specific outcomes, understanding how to structure a prompt is going to give you much better outcomes. Much like many of us learned how to use Google searches and phrase things in a specific way to get very specific outcomes, people are going to benefit from understanding how each language model thinks, with air quotes, around how it processes information and provides a response, and make sure that they're providing prompts to the agents and to the LLMs in a way that gets them the outcomes that they need. Now, that's not necessarily manipulating the agent, but it's understanding how that agent is expecting a conversational structure to occur. Yeah, I think from an IT service management point of view, we're going to see a push towards zero service desk. And this is something I think we've talked about in the industry for a number of years. And I'm seeing more and more companies talk about it, is the fact that they don't necessarily have agents taking calls or answering chats with end users in the business. They have agents that are set up, AI agents that are interacting with all of their end users, either through their existing chat channels like Microsoft Teams, Slack, etc., or through specific built agents that are out there for the purpose of being the face of the service desk to their customers or employees. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, and we're going to hopefully, again, thinking of AI as an assistive technology for humans, put those humans on work that is much more strategic in nature and drives a higher value for those businesses so that they can actually improve their service levels, improve the technology, improve the services, and allow the high volume, low value work to go to the agents in a way that services the customers faster, improves access to information, and fixes problems quicker. But I think we've got a long way to go to get to that point of perfection. In terms of operations, I think the best place where we're going to see AI in the near future and the long-term future is moving towards understanding large amounts of data, understanding the patterns that are within that data, and helping to surface better insights for your business, for your operations, and things that require a lot of processing power today are going to kind of come down in terms of the speed at which it takes to analyze information and the insight you get out of that. The best piece of advice I could give to IT leaders today who are looking at either being told they have to take on an agentic AI project, or that they're trying to persuade their business to look more at AI in general, would be to stop speaking in technology terms around what these things do and start learning to speak in the language of the business. Start speaking about the business processes that can be targeted as a part of this technology. Start speaking about the business outcomes that you're going to be able to drive as a part of this. This is a challenge I think we in IT have not been very good at facing over the last 20 years. We've talked about treating IT like a business without fundamentally understanding the language of business. We really need to start looking at every dollar that gets invested in IT as something that should be making a return on that investment back to the business in a meaningful way. And I'm not talking about reducing call handle times. I'm not talking about increasing the number of tickets that you close every month, or increasing uptime of servers. I'm talking about real effects to the businesses and the outcomes that you're driving. Are you increasing top line revenue? Are you reducing costs for the business with this? Start thinking and speaking of these terms and how AI is going to affect this, because one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing a large investment in AI is because there is an essential loss of faith in many businesses around what the technology teams can do to drive business value for them. Opportunity. In every inflection point we've had across business for the last 100+ years, periods of time in which we see large-scale disruption always brings opportunity. Opportunity to shine, to stand out, to have a meaningful impact on where things are going, especially as a technologist within business. Now is a huge opportunity for folks in IT and IT leadership to be a guiding voice for the business as to how this disruptive technology can actually benefit them.